Albuquerque, a city in the southwestern United States, the largest city in the state of New Mexico. Somewhere an unknown man in white underpants and a gas mask is racing on an old mobile home. Next to him in the passenger seat is some guy in a complete blackout also wearing a gas mask. There are 2 bodies lying around in the van, either passed out or corpses. At a non-average speed after the turn, the man could not cope with the skid on a sandy road and took the van into a ditch. In complete panic and confusion, he runs out of the car, throwing off his gas mask and throws it away. After breathing a little, in complete confusion, the man takes a stupid breath and runs into the van grabbing a green shirt, a gun, throwing it into his underpants, and a camera. Trying to recover, the man records a video on the camera in which he gives his full name and address. This is Walter Hartwell White. Walter turns to the police, to his wife and his son. With a break, he says that this video is not a confession of guilt. To his wife Skylar, she is the love of his whole life. To Walter Jr., he is his strong man. They have to find out some of the events from his life that have happened over the past few days. Walter says that not all of this is true. He says goodbye and stops filming. As if gaining courage, Walter goes out of the ditch onto the road, pulls out a gun and points it at the sounds of the siren, thinking that it comes from the police. Immediately we are transported to the events of 3 weeks ago. Walter is lying in bed at night with his wife and he can't sleep. Not knowing what to do, he jumps on a walking simulator on the spot and stares at his 1985 Nobel Prize. In the morning, his wife, Skylar, serves veggie bacon for breakfast, laying out the number 50 from it. It's Walter's birthday today. His son, Walter Jr., who suffers from infantile central paralysis, appears and explains about the lack of cold water in the house. At breakfast it turns out that the family does not live the richest life. The younger one doesn't like what he sees on his plate, and Walter, trying to find the pros, says that such bacon is good for problems with cholesterol. Having gone to school, with his son on a very budget Pontiac Aztek 2001, Walter tries to help him, and he says that he is fine. The senior goes to class. Walter, who has a huge interest in chemistry, which is his subject, enthusiastically tries to interest children in science. In order to feed his family, Walter works after school, works at a second job as a cashier at a car wash, where he has a very unpleasant boss with big eyebrows named Bogdan. Bogdan sends Walter to wash cars as he does not have enough workers. After a little indulgence, he goes on an errand, because he does not want to lose his job. During the process, he is noticed by one of the students who has rich parents. Feeling ashamed, Walter continues to wash his car. Having gone home on his Pontiac, entering the door of his house, he is met by a large number of people, where family, friends and relatives are hiding in silence, trying to surprise him. It worked and Walter was really surprised and was undoubtedly glad. During the celebration, everyone drinks, congratulates the hero of the occasion, toasts and have fun. His brother-in-law, who works in DEA, interrupts this process, inviting everyone to the TV. The news release tells about a major roundup in which Hank participated. Walter showed interest in this, as there is a lot of money in this area, and his brother-in-law invited him to one of the nearest raids. Walt, out of fervor and curiosity to observe the process of drug preparation, exclusively as a chemist, agrees. In the evening before going to bed, Skylar talks about her not very significant sales on the internet. Walt, after 2 jobs, feels tired, and does not particularly show involvement in the conversation. The next day at the car wash, after hard work, Walt got a little stuck and started coughing godlessly, and eventually fell to the ground in a complete blackout. An ambulance takes him away from work, in which Walt wakes up, vaguely tries to explain to the doctor that this fainting is not serious, and it happened from the flu and something like that. He doesn't want it to somehow hit their small family budget, since treatment in Albuquerque is paid and far from cheap. The doctor, as if suspecting something, asks about cigarettes and smoking. Walt, in complete surprise, replies that he has never smoked. In the hospital, he is examined quickly and he turns out to be in the doctor's office. The doctor reports that he has lung cancer. Inoperable. The doctor looks more scared and lost than the patient himself, and doubts that Walt is aware of what he is being told. Walt is very calm, and staring blankly at the interlocutor, points to a small yellow spot on his robe, presumably from mustard or something like that. Arriving home, Walt takes a bottle of cold beer out of the refrigerator and decides not to tell his wife that he has cancer. In turn, Skylar makes a remark to him because he used a MasterCard card, which is an extra waste of money. While working at the cash register at the car wash, Walter stared out of the window and stuck tightly into the distance. The boss comes up to him and again calls him to wash cars because of the lack of people. Walt literally boils up, sending Bogdan far away with his thick eyebrows, and carrying everything in his path and continuing to insult the boss, he eagerly leaves the car wash. At home with a bottle of beer, Walt sits by his empty pool and experiences either despair, or depression, or joy, just throws away the matches. At this moment, he comes up with the idea to call his brother-in-law, Hank, and arrange a meeting about the very planned raid, which was discussed at his house at the time of the holiday on his birthday. Walt finds himself in an armored vest somewhere on the edge of town with Hank and his partner, Stephen Gomez. Hank gives a little briefing. This time they're taking a meth lab. While the capture team proceeds directly to the capture itself, Hank and Stephen are betting on the racial origin of the laboratory cook. Walt, watching the process, asks permission to go inside and see how everything works there. Hank agrees, but only after they check everything inside. The men get out of the car into the house, and at that moment Walt sees a guy in only his underpants get out of the window of a neighboring house and, pulling on his pants, tumbles off the roof. Walt recognizes the guy as his seasoned bad student, Jesse Pinkman. Jesse recognizes his former chemistry teacher and gives him a sign not to raise the boil. Pinkman in a hurry pulls on his clothes and runs to his car red Toyota Tercel with a license plate on which it says the Capitan and pushes the gas pedal to full. In the evening of the same day, at his house, Jesse hides his car with a blanket and hears a noise from the side of the road, as if someone is sneaking. It was Walt. A conversation ensues in which Pinkman, in complete perplexity, does not understand what his old school teacher is doing here, and tells him not to lecture him about God, conscience, guilt, and the law, because it will not work. Walter says he's not here to teach Jesse about life. He says he knows chemistry, and Pinkman knows the industry. And a 50-year-old chemistry teacher in Albuquerque suggests that a non-major methamphetamine manufacturer his former students start manufacturing and selling the same meth. Walter announces that if Pinkman does not agree, he will hand him over to the police. Skylar and her sister Marie are packing a shipment that Skylar sells and talking about all sorts of things. At the same time, Walt steals flasks and various cooking devices in the warehouse of his school. He puts all the necessary equipment in the car and heads home to Pinkman. During unloading from the trunk, Walt, cheerful, full of enthusiasm and anticipating the process, tells Jesse what this or that flask is responsible for and simultaneously describing the cooking process itself. Pinkman used the equipment that he had, and therefore he does not quite understand what he is being told. He declares that the product he prepared was of high quality, and he does not like that his old teacher teaches him what and how to do. Walter wants to cook a product of the purest quality, without any impurities, so that its quality speaks for itself. Next, it was necessary to determine where they would cook. After going through several options, they settled on buying a mobile home. White withdraws the last few saved thousands for the purchase of transport, and transfers them to his new partner. When he leaves, Pinkman stops him and asks why he actually starts doing this. In Jesse's eyes, after school, Mr. White was seen as very correct and decent, and now he thinks that he's screwed up. Walter thought about it, and replied that he now suddenly just woke up. Walter Jr. is trying to pull on his pants in a clothing store, but it's not so easy for him to get out of his illness. Walter Sr. flies into the fitting room and helps his son. Together, the whole family is discussing new jeans, and suddenly some guys are laughing at the younger one and the whole situation. Skylar was already moving out to shut the guys up, but Walter Sr. stopped her and left in the opposite direction. Skylar calms the younger one down, but at some point she ran out of patience and went towards the guys. And immediately Mr. White bursts into the front door of the store with a quick step. With a sharp heel kick to the shin, he knocks down the largest of the guys and presses his foot on the offender's leg, insulting him along the way. After the big guy gets up, they begin to verbally fight with Walter, but Walt shows a lot of audacity, and shows with all his appearance that he is ready for any outcome. The big guy just turns around and walks away, calling Walter a psycho. After buying a van and collecting everything necessary, Mr. White and Jesse Pinkman went out of town, where they planned to cook meth. When Jesse looked around and informed White that they were in a safe place for their business, and there was no one nearby, Walter began to undress so that his clothes would not be soaked with the smell of steam secretions during the cooking process. In nothing but underpants and an apron, 50-year-old Mr. Walter White begins to prepare. Young Pinkman, just to fool around, starts recording what is happening on camera. White immediately knocks her off her hand and the two of them begin to fully cook methamphetamine. At the end of the process, Pinkman is really amazed at what they managed to cook under White's guidance and immediately wants to try it. Walter is a little tired, claims that he strictly adhered to the chemistry base, and declares to Jesse that the two of them only cook and sell, while they do not use themselves. Pinkman goes to a dealer named Crazy 8, and not very skillfully, tries to arrange the sale of methamphetamine with him. Crazy 8, having not a little experience in such matters, evaluates the quality of the product according to its merits. He puts pressure on Pinkman with his brother Emilio. Crazy 8 wants to know where such a stupid fool like Jesse has got crystals of such good quality. Jesse succumbed and the three of them arrive at the place. In the conversation, Emilio recognizes Walter because he was on the roundup of DEA and they take up arms. Pinkman tries to run away and falls down. Emilio immediately catches up with him, puts a gun on him, and holds him at gunpoint. Crazy 8 approaches Walter and says that the product he has prepared is actually perfect, and points the gun at him already. At the last minute, White stops him and offers to teach him his recipe, in exchange for keeping him and Pinkman alive. Crazy 8 agrees, and while Jesse is passed out in the grass, Emilio and his brother are watching as he prepares for cooking. After some time, Walter heats up an aluminum bowl and no one but him knows what is in it. With a sharp jerk, White pours an unknown powder into a bowl and immediately runs out of the van. There was a small explosion, as a result of which a poisonous gas was released. Emilio and Crazy 8 tried to get out of the mobile home, but Walter, with his feet on the ground, holds the door, preventing them from getting out. The brothers managed to fire several shots and leave holes in the van door before suffocating inside. Walter ran to Pinkman and, trying to free him, saw a fire burning next to the van. He immediately rushed to extinguish it. The dry grass caught fire from Emilio's cigarette butt, which he threw away. Realizing that he cannot put out the fire, he pulls a gas mask on himself and Pinkman, who arrives unconscious. After dragging Pinkman into the car, he presses the pedal and tries to get as far away from this place as possible. The events that were at the beginning are taking place. And after them, Walter stands on the road with a gun, his eyes fixed on the sound of the siren. The siren continues to hum, and Walt, in complete confusion and panic, does not know what to do. He tried to shoot himself, but the gun didn't go off. In tears, Walter stared into the distance and saw that several fire trucks were approaching. Walter White realized that the siren he had been hearing all this time was the siren of fire trucks.